So let's put it all to the test via an example. So we're searching Google Scholar. First of all, I would just put Google Scholar into Google and you'll see links to Google Scholar. Then click on Google Scholar and then you get this little box pop up. And in the box is where you type in your key search words. So remember, you might have used the PICO method to find or narrow down these key search words so you can pop them in. So for example, you might put in spinal adjustment and you put quotation marks around it because you don't want it to be looking for spinal and adjustment, but you want it to be looking for spinal adjustment together. So as a phrase, you might also write in or and then put another quotation mark, chiropractic adjustment, end of quotation mark. So now you're looking for either spinal adjustment or chiropractic adjustment. You may even want to put in spinal manipulation in there as well and go or and then spinal manipulation in quotation marks, because spinal manipulation, you might find many more articles. Well, you will find many more articles than chiropractic adjustment or spinal adjustment. But that's just options for you. You could type in and adult and neck pain, and again in quotation mark neck pain, but you don't have to put in the ands there because it will by default also include an and. Here's an example. We've typed in all of these key terms. If you hit search then, the little magnifying glass button, this will give you 970 studies. And it would take you an awful long time to wade through 970 studies. So let's, for an example, try and narrow this down. So what you could do is, for example, ways you could narrow this down is you could click on only studies in the last 5 years. You could also narrow it down by adding in title, colon, in front of spinal adjustment or chiropractic adjustment. So see, I've put in with the green arrows at the top there, I've put in title, colon, spinal adjustment, and then there's the big or, and then again I've got in title, colon, chiropractic adjustment. Now it's narrowing it down to have spinal adjustment or chiropractic adjustment in the title of the article. And I'm only looking at the last 5 years. If you hit search again now, you'll end up with 4 research articles. Now, 4 research articles is much better than 970, and this could be a good place to start. So I'd highly recommend playing around a little bit and refining your search within Google Scholar. So next up, how do we interpret the results? So let's look at these results that we've just found. These little quotation marks that show up underneath each of the results, if you click on them, it gives you the reference to this particular article. Now, this is very useful if you're writing a literature review, or you're wanting to write about an article, or you just want to keep it for your own notes. You know, I got this information from this particular reference. It also gives you an option to download the reference into any referencing software that you may be using. For example, EndNote. Now, I use EndNote all the time, so I use these quotation marks all the time. Because again, at a click of a button, it will download the reference and go into my EndNote library if I use these little quotation marks underneath the article. Again, I might use this literally just to get the reference into my EndNote library. So if I've got a hard copy of a PDF of an article, then I just type in the title into Google Scholar, and up comes the reference. I click on the little quotation marks, and then it'll pop into EndNote for me. And this just saves me having to type in all the details into EndNote. Now, this related article text that's, again, also underneath each of the search results can also be very useful, as it can direct you to similar articles. So you may have missed some key search terms, and so similar articles can be quite good to look at. Those related articles can be quite useful to click on and have a look at. You may have missed some key search terms. For example, maybe other similar articles, but they've used the search term manipulation instead of adjustment. So it's still worth looking at and reading the definitions to see what they actually did. A lot of spinal manipulation papers, they've used the term spinal manipulation, but if you read the article, they're actually thrusting at subluxated segments. So it's quite clearly an adjustment. Sometimes you actually have to read the definitions within the article themselves to figure out, is it actually a manipulation or is it an adjustment? Those related articles can be quite useful to have a quick squiz through. Now, there's also a link here to other versions of this document found by Google Scholar. So it's also quite good to see, are there different versions of the article? And then, very importantly, off to the right-hand side of your search result are the links to full texts if they are available. So if there is a full text version of the article available online, the links will show up on the right-hand side. They're not always there, especially if you're searching the last couple of years. you might have to pay for the article. So then you have to click on the article and then you can go to the link to get access to the full paper, and actually you might have to pay for it. Or you send it off to your institution's library and they can do a interlibrary exchange. So they'll be able to get hold of it for you. But it'll just take a bit longer to get hold of the full PDF or the full article. This is very, very useful to know that those links on the right-hand side is a link to the full text article for free. Then it will show up there. Again, I use that all the time. And just before we finish off this section, I also wanted to introduce you to the advanced searching. So Google Scholar has an advanced search option as well. So instead of refining your search manually, this can be a very handy tool to use. If you've forgotten the plus and the minus and the in text and the in title and quotation marks, if you've forgotten how to do those, in the advanced search, you have options to put it in here without having to remember that you've got to put a plus in front of it or a minus in front of it. So if you've forgotten that, then if you go on the advanced search, it makes it very easy. So for example here, you can find articles with all of the words. So that's really the same as having and between them, but if you've forgotten, with the exact phrase. So if you've now forgotten to put quotation marks, you can put it in there. With at least one of the words, you can put that in. Then it's really looking for or in between. Because we put quotation marks, then it's looking for spinal adjustment or chiropractic adjustment. Without the words, so if you wanted to exclude a certain search term, you can pop that in the advanced box. If you want them to find those words in the title, you tick that, or anywhere in the article, that's your choice. You can have a specific author. You can put an author in. You can have return articles by dates. So again, you can specify what dates you want to search for, or in which journal the article is published in. So if you're looking for a particular journal. So the advanced search can be very useful. But if you've already learnt the Boolean operators, if you've learnt to use your terms and your minuses and your pluses and your quotation marks, you can normally get away with this without having to go into the advanced search. So we're going to go and look at a couple of other popular searching platforms. But before we do, again, just pause and test yourself on what we've covered now about Google Scholar.